I really think playing politics is important, but you play it to your tune, not necessarily to the tune that's out there. And the reason I say this is because we need to safeguard our mental health. And so in playing the politics, you kind of need to choose your battles very wisely. And you need to stand firm in who you are and what you're here to deliver. I don't think it's important to be part of every clique. You know, I don't think it's important to be in the know-how of everything, but I think it's important to be in the know-how of the things that are important to you.
Hi everyone, welcome back. Your favorite tech sisters are back. Just by introduction again, if you haven't been here before, I am Tobeka Shabalala and I'm coming with...
Hello everyone, welcome back. My name is Nomfundo Ndala.
Welcome everyone. Today we have a guest with us. We're very excited. It being Women's Month, we thought this conversation would be pertinent, but we'll get into it soon. Our guest today is Duduzile Mtimkulu.
Welcome. Dudu.
Thank you, ladies. Thank you for having me.
So I don't want to share your bio. Maybe you will tell us more about yourself. Tell us who you are in the corporate space. Outside of that, what do you do in your free time?
Okay, so I guess it's quite obvious that my name is Duduzile Mtimkulu. I work for the financial services sector, one of the big organizations there. I love to cook, love to be outdoors, love spending time with family, love listening to music, and yeah, I'm a creative.
Nice. So just to get into it, right, we want to talk about leadership, getting into a leadership position as women, because generally we feel like there's this invisible ceiling that's somewhere where we get stuck. What has your journey been in being a leader in the corporate space?
So I think I resonate a lot with that invisible ceiling. And I think it's only visible to us, but invisible to everyone else. My journey to leadership has been quite a long one. So I started off quite low, but I think with every leadership opportunity, there's always milestones to achieve and there's always like growth sprouts to aspire to. I think it hasn't been the most easiest, and I think the most difficult journey of leadership is the journey of self. Because I think it's very pertinent to be very self-aware, to develop yourself first before you can aspire to lead others. And I think the beginning of my leadership journey was actually trying and understanding to lead myself and understanding who I want to be.
Yeah.
And then obviously in the environment that I find myself in, corporate, and that is a jungle.
Yeah. So you say that, it was quite a long journey. So that means there's a lot of challenges that you may have faced along your journey into being in a leadership space, especially being a woman in corporate.
Yes.
So what are the challenges that maybe you can highlight that you may have faced along your journey trying to becoming a leader in the corporate space?
I think as a junior leader,
Okay.
it's definition of self.
All right.
Knowing who you are in the space that you operate, understanding what leadership qualities are required for you to get to your next, but also mastering the current.
Okay.
And I think the balance between those is actually quite trying. The tools are always available, and I think our organizations are always willing to support and grow women. But I think it's in understanding who we are as ourselves is the beginning of the leadership. So some of the challenges is actually being fitted into your role, but also embracing your uniqueness. I found that my younger self, and I refer to my younger self as if I'm so old, but my younger self would really shy away from being authentically me in corporate and trying to mimic someone else or trying to be at a certain standard, but not really bringing Ududu to the table. And I find that now as a leader, it comes naturally. It's easier to position Dudu at the table and position how I would do things as opposed to role model what someone else has done previously.
That's interesting.
It is.
Yeah, because most of the time, we, especially as women, you try to get to a certain position and you look at another woman who's been in that position. You think, okay, there's a Dr. So-and-so who holds a CIO position here and I want to be like her. And then you start moving like her, you start acting like her. So I think it's quite important that you mention that, be yourself, and you actually get there.
Yeah.
It's quite interesting.
And then I think just speaking of leadership styles, because you spoke of authentically being you, right? Do you feel that there's a difference between how a man would lead versus how a woman would lead? Is there any difference, and should it matter, you know?
So I think it should, because I think as individuals we show up differently,
Okay.
and our genetic makeup is a default in who we are. But I do see the importance of why that the difference needs to show up. I think as women we are very soft, but that doesn't mean we are pushovers. It means we're soft in authority, we're soft in being assertive, but we get the work done. I don't think there's ever a point, or there'll ever be an opportunity for us to show up any different as women. I think the uniqueness of our traits is what makes us different as leaders, and I think the corporate environment needs that. Otherwise, we can just have males and not even go to work, because what do we bring to the table? You know, what value do we bring in who we are authentically?
I've been under, well, not really like leadership of a woman, ne? And well, I haven't been directly under like someone saying that my line manager is a woman or my manager is a woman. I've been led by men, but I've been like, I've seen like a woman in leadership, and I don't know if maybe it's because of how, you know, the corporate space is, or how the leadership up there is. There's a lot of men, and as a woman you try to make sure that, guys, you need to see me. So there was this lady, like I felt like she was trying so hard to show that I have power and I need to be seen. And looking at it now from a woman's perspective, and you know, seeing how things play around in corporate, it's just like, shame, man, you're trying, you know, to show that, guys, I'm a leader here. Like, because sometimes it came off as toxic, just like you trying so hard to show us that you have power here, and we can see it. But now that I look at things, it's just like, maybe up there she's not being seen, she's not being heard, and when it comes down to everyone else, it feels like, oh, she's a shitty person or something like that. So, tick.
I think that speaks a lot about your confidence as an individual.
Oh,
If you're needing to be validated by people saying things to you, doing things that are going to make you get seen so that people know you have power. And I think it speaks to like the personal mastery that I spoke about earlier.
Okay.
If you are rooted in who you are and you're comfortable, you don't need to get seen. Your work will be seen. You will be seen by default. And the fact that you've made it to the table means you've earned your way there. There isn't really a need for you to splash out more than that.
wow,
You know.
that's profound.
Yes.
And you speak about your work will speak for you. And I think we've spoken a little bit about this, how some people say your work is not going to speak for you. You're supposed to speak for yourself. And especially navigating the corporate space, ne? People tend to say, you know, the ones who get ahead or the ones who take up leadership roles are the ones who can actually speak. Because some people hide behind, okay, I've done my work. And then there's going to be someone who's going to say, well, I've done my work, but I can speak so properly that you won't even notice that I haven't done my work so well. And the one who doesn't know how to speak, just like they've done the work so well, but they can't articulate the work that they've done. And it feels like, okay, just because she can speak and I can't, she's doing more. Do you understand? So now you're saying that your work will speak for yourself. So I think there's like a little bit contradiction, but you being in a leadership position, what's your take on that? Are you looking at how people speak, or are people really looking at our work?
So I think it's a combination.
Okay.
I think when you've done the work, you're confident to deliver the work.
Okay.
Right? But in you delivering the work doesn't mean that it has to be perfect in how you articulate it. And I think we misjudge the articulation for the work being done or the work being owned by you. And I think as individuals, we have qualities both that we're proud of, example, our strengths, and qualities that we really want to work on. And these are like our shortcomings. And this is some of the enhancements we can do to our shortcomings. Okay. So I can put together a presentation, but not really be as articulate and confident in delivering the presentation. But that doesn't take away the depth of the skill that I possess, as well as the work put in. And I think we often articulate, or rather assimilate articulation to confidence and ownership of work and excellence, but we actually shouldn't. It actually should be a balance. And I think as leaders, there isn't a way where we are like possess all the skills in one.
Okay.
So I could be a leader that's very well articulate, but I could create an environment that allows my team to shine because that isn't my forte or isn't my strength. You know, and I think I've had the pleasure of working under a female leader that provides the stage for you to showcase what you've got, own the work that you've put in, and deliver and showcase, you know, your actual delivery to key stakeholders. And I think it's important that as an individual you understand: can I play in this world? Would I do justice, or should I allow, you know, my successes or people in the team to actually take up and show up?
Makes sense.
Interesting.
And I think, speaking of like the different leadership styles and how perhaps you allow others to show up, right? I think we've boldly said that people in leadership also face imposter syndrome, right?
Yeah.
So how do you navigate this corporate jungle with this thing of imposter syndrome? And would you say leaders, like all leaders, face imposter syndrome as well?
No, they do. I think coming here, I face similar. I think we do. And I think it's because we really play between the lines of not being arrogant, but also trying to stay humble, you know, and we don't want to come across as Miss Know-it-all or I've got this. And I think that's why that imposter syndrome plays in. But in the work done through self-mastery, that confidence level, you're able to get there. It is a journey, and it's challenging. I get it. I know a lot of leaders that get it. Coming here, I was getting it. You know, it's that, but I definitely think it happens. And I think it's that confidence of, this is who I am, this is what I can deliver, this is within my means, and I've got this.
Very nice. So you also mentioned that you've been under female leadership. Was there a difference when you were led by a man, and was there different when you were led by a woman?
Yes, there was.
How was it?
So both great experience.
Okay.
Being led by a male, very direct, not touchy-feely in a way, but very emotionally mature, good environment, but really target-driven, delivery-driven, you know. Lots of small talk, catch-ups here and there, but you understand you're here to deliver the work, and very self-affirming, right? If I look at the leadership under a female, very soft, but soft in the sense that you can do it. You've got nothing to lose. We've got this. You've reached this level. You need to deliver. This is it. So for me, the balance is important. But it's not to compare, but it's to get the strength of both. You know, we worry often about, do I look okay?
Yeah.
Am I ready for this presentation? And a male will be like, you're ready, you're going up. You know, there's no in between. It's black or white. I think I appreciate that, and I appreciate both sides. And I think it's important for us to show up in that uniqueness, because that's where we drive more value, you know?
Okay.
And then difference in leadership and everything that happens in corporate comes down to the politics of corporate, right? Yeah. So is it an inevitable thing that we will face politics? And if it is, right, there's a saying that you can either play politics or politics will play you, right? So how do we play this politics as we navigate our way up? What is it? If it is there, should it be there? How do we navigate it if it is?
I think it's definitely there. And it's there by default because it's individuals. And I think with every relation, families, politics, friendship politics, it will always exist because humans interact and create that kind of space. I really think playing politics is important, but you play it to your tune, not necessarily to the tune that's out there. And the reason I say this is because we need to safeguard our mental health. And so in playing the politics, you kind of need to choose your battles very wisely. And you need to stand firm in who you are and what you're here to deliver. I don't think it's important to be part of every clique. You know, I don't think it's important to be in the know-how of everything. But I think it's important to be in the know-how of the things that are important to you, the things that affect your growth, the things that affect your role, your work, your delivery, your engagement with your stakeholders. And that's where I think we should play the politics. And sometimes it's okay to be nice. It really is, you know, because it gets the work done. It creates the environment where we can all really do what we need to. And sometimes playing the politics is really closing yourself out and not hearing the noise, so that you don't get to a point where you're easily upset over something or you think this is happening.
Okay.
It's interesting. Speaking of corporate politics, do you think corporate is toxic?
I think there's levels of toxicity depending on how we define what toxicity is. And I also think there's not always a bad element to toxicity. So for example, if you're in a team that's overachieving, geez, that's toxic, because can you imagine not delivering ever?
Yeah.
But what does it drive? It drives value for where you are. So that may be toxic to someone else, but in actual fact, in the team construct, it actually isn't. We look at competition as something that's quite toxic, but does that drive growth within? You know, does that exude the confidence that's lying there somewhere? Does it require you to come out of your shell? And if it does, it's a good level of toxicity. And I think balancing it out is important. So, yeah.
Yeah, because on social media, you know, like a lot of people have made corporate to seem very, very toxic. And having been in the corporate space, I see it, but it's also just like, well, it's whatever. Like, I'm just here to do my job, honestly. So now I also want to talk about the misconceptions around being a leader. You know, like you mentioned that sometimes people expect you to be Miss Know-it-all, I've got this and everything like that. What do you think are the misconceptions that people have as leaders, especially women? And, you know, how do we address those misconceptions?
So the first is that we know everything.
Yeah.
Or rather, leaders know everything. And
That's true.
You'd rather go to your leader than
because they know everything, right? Yeah, so I think that's the one. I think the other is that we lead with emotions.
Okay. Women.
I don't necessarily think that's true.
Okay.
Why not?
I think when people say we lead with emotions, it makes it look as if we don't think things through.
Okay.
And so the misconception is if you're leading with emotion, it doesn't necessarily mean there isn't common sense or thought put into it. It's not like an erratic sprout, you know? So I think that's a misconception there.
Okay.
I also think that another misconception is that reporting to a female is bad, or that we treat each other badly. And I think that's a misconception
That
as
women
well.
treat each other badly.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Yeah,
So
I've heard that. Yeah.
So we hear that a lot, and
Okay.
I don't think that's necessarily true.
Be nice to each other. That's why we have
But
this podcast.
I think it goes back to the question that you asked around. Some female leaders might want to be like the boys
yes.
instead of leading from authenticity, and maybe that's where it comes from. You know?
Yeah. That's where we see it come from, and I think it's also a point of vulnerability. I think when we're feeling vulnerable or unsure of ourselves in something, we overcompensate by maybe like exerting power, not necessarily needed at the time, but kind of to circumvent people thinking we're not competent or we're not really knowledgeable about a certain subject.
So to whoever thinks that women don't make logical decisions and they make emotional decisions, that's not true.
No, it's
okay. Okay, that's why we have women in leadership.
Yes.
And then still sticking to the point of male, female leaders and all that, right? Do you see any changes, or foresee any changes in terms of equality, especially for women in the workplace? Because sure, we can go on forever about that topic. There are so many things that we feel are not balanced. Do you think there are changes that you foresee, but also do you think there are things that still need to be done to maybe make it a bit of an equal playing ground?
So I think it will depend. I think industries differ.
Okay.
And I think some industries are quite advanced. If I think of where we are in the financial services sector, I think a lot of work has been done. I do think there's still more work or more milestones to be achieved, but I really think that the playing field is leveling up. I think that the caliber of women that are in corporate and leading are very robust. I think they're quite confident in stating their needs. And I think I'm in a space where people are confident to state what they want and create the environments that they need. So I really think a lot has been done, but I don't think we're at the end yet. I do still think there's a lot of work that still needs to be done,
Okay.
Nice. Now, what if someone like maybe is in maybe a senior position and they're looking to get to the management position or leadership role? What do you think are the strategies to go about that?
So I think career paths are important.
Okay.
And I think goal definition is also important for self,
Yeah.
you know, and also understanding how to get there from a skill set perspective. And then the second thing would be like mentorship and coaching. I think very often we take for granted the value in informal coaching and mentoring. And when I say informal, it's like peer-to-peer, when we're having conversations with our friends or having conversations with stakeholders or within the team. That kind of advice given to individuals or recommendations, for me, falls under that category of mentorship and coaching. And I think a lot of that, because it's given in an environment that's quite relaxed, you can absorb most of it than you would in a formal mentorship session. So I think that's important. And I think once you've uncovered all of that and gone through like the discovery or what it is you want to do, it's then important to pinpoint someone that's going to help you pivot into that role. This person may not necessarily be in the role that you're gunning for, but they may house or harness the skills that you need. So for example, in my environment, if I'm wanting to be like the CEO, I won't necessarily need coaching from a CEO, but I'd need to understand what the landscape is like before you get to CEO level and try to target for that. That will then prepare me for my next. And I think it's important to also look at growth in stages and not like in linear fashion. I'm getting from point A to B to C, but it's important to how do I get here? And do I stay long enough in this role to harness all the skills before my next jump? And I think a lot of us really just look at, I'm here, now I need to get there and there, but we're not harnessing the skills. So we're not staying long enough in that role to really, really grasp, the very basics of that will then help you to break the ceiling and get to the next.
Yeah. And I think, I like that you touched mentorship, coaching, right? I think I want to know more about sponsorship, which is something we don't speak of a lot, right? Yeah. Maybe if you can define it first, like what is corporate sponsorship? And is it important for a person looking to get to a leadership role at some point in their lives?
Yeah, so I think in my definition, I wouldn't really remove it completely from coaching. Okay. Because I think for someone to coach you, they'd need to sponsor you at some level, And when we look at sponsoring, we look at intangible things like time, investment in understanding with who you are, what is it that you're trying to get to. And so this person then sponsors you in whatever role that you're in, meaning complement whatever qualities that you fall short of and helps you to harness that. I think a sponsorship coach / a mentor is someone that really becomes your accountability partner in your own development. And I think there's definitely room for that. I don't think we come from homes where I can say there's a CEO that can teach me the ropes. And so it's important to look for those skills, in a corporate setting. And it doesn't always have to be one person. I mean, you can have one person teach you one thing and the other teach you the next. And I think it's important. So I think it's definitely needed. There's definitely room for it. And I think there'll continue to be room for it because I think our environment changes so much. Externally, there's so many things that affect corporates. And I think there'll always be room for a new skill set, for new development, new direction, new strategic tools. So yes, definitely there's room for it.
And how do you look at maybe someone, or how do you say, okay, I want to get to a certain position in my career, I want to do X, Y, Z. How do I identify someone and say, okay, I'm going to ask her to be my mentor? And how, because most of the time, coming from someone who's, I've mentored someone, but like someone who's never mentored someone in the corporate space, I sometimes feel so shy to go and ask someone to say, yo, I'd like her and I want her to be my mentor, because I look at her and I feel like she's,
oozing.
Exactly. She's like, I want to be like her. So, and sometimes I feel so shy. I'm like, I don't know how she's going to take it. Does she have time? Like, how do I even approach her and say, I like you, I want you to be my mentor, I want to be like you one day?
I think courage.
Courage.
I think courage.
Okay.
Yeah, courage. Courage and confidence.
Okay.
Confidence in that I'm going to ask for this. What's the worst that can happen? happen. She can say no, he can say no.
Okay.
Not really the end of the world. Or they can redirect me to someone else if, they don't have the time. But I think it's courage. It's courage and the drive of really wanting to be like that person,
Okay.
It's like every time you see them, you get the snog. Oh my.
Yeah, it's like, I feel so starstruck.
Yes. And often enough we do. And I think we also get starstruck with our own leaders, like our own direct leaders, I get starstruck with my line manager. And she'll do something, I'm like, oh my God, that's next level, Yeah, but I think it's just having the courage to say, I want that for myself. I want to harness that for me. And I can see that I've got the potential. I just need help, to harness it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then on your side, have you mentored or sponsored or coached anyone? And how's the experience? And also, do you have the time to mentor if you don't? If you're not currently mentoring someone, do you have the time to do it anyway?
Yeah, so I am currently mentoring 2 people. Quite a young journey. But I've also had the privilege of being mentored.
Okay.
And I think from that, I just see the value of it. I've got the time.
Okay.
Well,
Make
the time. Make the time. But I think we live in such a beautiful world that our digital space is so busy. And I think that's where most of the time is. I don't necessarily think there's a lot of face-to-face time or in-person time. But I definitely think there's a lot of online time. And that's how I've been able to make the time. I think it's challenging in that someone identifies something in you that you really are comfortable to play low-key. And this person challenges you to teach the tools to get to the point where they can also play it low-key, And I'll make the example when we're sitting here before shooting. I'm like, I'm so nervous. And you guys look at me like, really? It's not showing.
Yes.
And teaching someone how to get to that point where you are feeling nervous, but it doesn't have to be your persona.
Yeah. Okay.
That makes sense.
Makes sense.
So you said you've been mentored and you mentored someone.
Yeah.
So now, as a leader, what are the qualities that you feel like it's important for leaders to have this quality that you've seen maybe yourself that, okay, I need to have this quality, or you've seen your leaders show you this quality, feel like, oh, you're lacking this quality, or you need this quality, or you actually have this quality? What are the qualities you'd say are very important for leaders to have?
I think character definition is important for a leader. I need to understand who Tobeka is. I need to understand what makes her tick. I need to understand how to engage with her.
Okay.
So that for me is quite basic. I think it's also important for leaders to be patient in dealing with things. So whether it be delivery, whether it be growth, whether it be understanding, whatever it is, I think it's important to be patient. But in that patience, it's also important to create the environment that creates urgency for the person to move from the current to the next. So for example, if someone in your team is not able to maybe articulate themselves in a presentation and they're really nervous and really can't get through, I think it's important for you to be patient with that person, but also provide more opportunities for that to happen. And when it happens more often, you're actually harnessing the skill for them. And I think that's that level of patience that I believe in. I think it's also important to understand where people are in terms of their knowledge and what gaps exist. And as a leader, it's important to allow for the development of that gap to actually close out. And I think in doing that, you're then able to harness more of the people that you lead and get more out of them. And that actually helps to keep them motivated and determined, to achieve. So I think those kind of balances are important. I think communication with empathy is important as well. Understanding where people are from a mental health perspective, but also understanding how people want to engage. And it's also looking for the greatness in the engagement. So, you can ask a person how you're doing, they're fine, but does their demeanor say they're fine? And as a leader, we should be able to pick up, doesn't necessarily force you to push, but you can tell from their demeanor that, okay, today we're trading carefully around here until we get to a point where we can actually actively discuss and see how we can help you.
In the world we live in, where we're so virtual, is it easy to pick that up? Because I don't know, you know?
No, I don't think so. And I think a lot of the hybrid work finds benefit
Okay.
in people relation, in person. But I think virtually, yeah, it is quite difficult. I think especially if people don't have their cameras on. It is quite difficult. Yeah, it is quite difficult. And I think you really have to have worked a period of time with someone to actually even pick it up from their voice.
True.
You know. So yeah, I don't think it's as easy.
And then, who would you say is your biggest inspiration or mentor? If you're willing to name someone, or virtual people, social media, anything, like, who would you say has been your biggest inspiration into who you are today?
So I think there's a lot that I can name. So definitely can name my current leader. Definitely. Definitely inspiration. Lots and lots and lots of learnings from her. And I think almost immediately my grandmother. I mean, she was a leader in her own right. So definitely leadership quality there. And I think we pick up from different places. I mean, great leaders from, the church that I belong to, great leaders from my own friends. Generally great leaders from stakeholders and people that I engage with. So I think I don't necessarily always look at one person as a specific, but I always pick up the qualities that I like in more individuals than one.
Okay.
And what do you believe are, in the workplace, maybe the most effective ways that we can be able to support women to grow, women to get into leadership? Like, what would you say that maybe people in leadership, like, what would you say, if there are people who want to grow and go up the ladder, how can they be supported?
I think first they need to be very direct about their growth.
Okay.
I think we often think it's our leaders' responsibility to make us grow, but it actually isn't. I think that we have to want to grow as a start, and then we have to be seen to be wanting to grow, and that's where your work speaks for you. And I think when opportunity arises, we need to take the opportunity to be in places where we can be seen to grow, and then we need to approach people that we deem are influential in our growth.
You say that when we see opportunity arise, we need to, take it. Can we create opportunities for ourselves?
Yes.
And how do you easily do that? Because it's just like, maybe I want to create an opportunity of some sort. How do I go to my leader and say, look, I want this opportunity?
Like that. Hello. I want this.
Wow.
No, just like that. And I think maybe taking it a step further, you identify that you're wanting to do something, or there's a role that you're wanting or you're interested in, and you don't necessarily have the experience or the exposure.
Okay.
Approach the people in that team, shadow the team, shadow one member, have an engagement about the leader there. See if you can come in and do a bit of work for 2 hours or so without distracting your own work. That's creating the opportunity for yourself. Explore things like secondments, job rotation. Have the conversation with your direct line. And I think that's where the career conversation is important. So when you're having your performance review, it's important to say, I think I've reached that invisible ceiling now. This is my next. Can you help me navigate? What recommendations do you have? This is how I'm thinking of going about it. Can you recommend anything more? And I think that's how you create the opportunities for yourself.
Interesting.
And then in creating these opportunities, right, how do you get yourself to a place where you're not overworking yourself or burning out? So speaking of mental health, mental wellness, how do you yourself balance this scale that we have? How do you balance your work and your life? Is it a balance or not? And for someone trying to get to a leadership position, obviously we might stretch ourselves thin.
Yeah.
How do you actually still balance this equilibrium of all this work, the life, the whatever else that we are doing, and avoiding any mental breakdowns in the process?
So I think I'm the worst to speak about that because I don't balance. I pour everything into my work, and that's a bad thing.
Okay.
I think it is difficult to find a balance, and especially when you're at a point where you're really trying to achieve so much and you really set out, to achieve your goals and milestones. It is difficult. I do get called out every so often to take leave, take a break.
Wow.
Yeah, it happens because we get into a space where work becomes the it, right? And you're like, just 5 more minutes. I just need to send this email out before I close out. Yeah, 5 minutes is an hour, and we're perfectionists. So this 5 minute thing has now gone into an hour, and I'm changing the whole thing. So so I do struggle with that a bit. So it is a development area for myself.
Yeah.
But I am surrounded by friends and family that really support. So they'll encourage it. What are you doing this weekend? We should be resting. Can we go out? Should we do this? And obviously balancing motherhood as well.
Yeah.
So you do get called out harshly by life. Say, hey, you now need to, But I think it is a challenge for all of us, especially when we're trying to achieve so much and we're thinking of branding. Oh my God, my brand can't be seen to not make my target. It is a challenge. I must say, no, it is a challenge. But we do need to find the balance. And when I do master it, I'll come back and tell you how I've done it. But for now, it's still a development area. And I do the best that I can with what I'm dealt. But I'd really like to harness that more and actually find a bigger balance, yes.
So speaking of, working so hard, creating a brand, I saw a video, I think today or yesterday, I remember, and they said that, work so hard that everyone knows that when Dudu is here, like they know Dudu is so good at her job. They can gossip about you, they can say stuff about you, but they'll never say she doesn't deliver, she doesn't work so hard. But now, speaking of, working so hard and everything like that, how do we say, okay, I work so hard, my work speaks for itself, and we did speak about, being articulate. But as women, do you think that women overwork themselves because we're trying to prove a point? Because Tabeka and I were speaking the other day about how, like, if I had a deliverable, right, and I feel like, okay, I need to get this done. Like, I need to meet the deadline. I need to make sure this is good. And sometimes we feel as though maybe men aren't, like, as...
They don't stress.
They don't stress like we do. It's just like, oh, well, there's a task. Yeah, I'll do it.
Like,
I'll do it. So I wonder if maybe it's a female thing or it's just a personal thing as a person that I want to work hard because are we doing this as women? Or it's just nah.
I don't think it's us as women.
Okay.
I think we may not be exposed to men that are panicking in our presence.
Okay.
And so it makes it look like they've got it together.
Yeah. Okay.
So they're good at masking the panic.
Yeah. I think they manage the stress much better than we do.
Yeah.
I'll give them credit for that.
Because I think it shows with women. It's just like, I'm panicking. I need to get this done.
Yeah.
And like we have the same deadline, but why aren't you as stressed as I am?
But I also think as women, we act out what we are feeling.
Okay.
So it's like an outward pouring
That's
of
true.
I'm stressing, see me, as opposed to, are you nervous? No, I'm not. But I am.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think it's that. And I think we're surrounded by this false sense of calmness around them that we actually think they don't panic, but I actually think they do.
And it's also maybe shame, not a false sense that they're hiding it. It's because of the standards of the world, maybe, how men are supposed to be. They're not supposed to be like, oh, no, I'm stressed. It's just like, well, I've got this. I'm a guy. I've got this. Because I was speaking to a friend the other day. Just like, I said, oh, do you want to talk about it? And he said, no, I can't talk about it. I don't want to talk about it. I'm a man. I was just like,
so,
okay. All right, man.
All right, so just to speak of mistakes that women make in climbing this corporate ladder. So we spoke about it's not a linear type of thing, right? So what are these mistakes that we are making as we think that, okay, this is where I'm going, this is how far I'm going to get, but what are we doing that's maybe to our detriment in us getting up there?
I think I'm guilty of this as well. It's not thinking we're good enough.
Okay.
I think it's expecting, so if something requires 10 competencies, we think we need to have all 10 or at least 9.5.
Okay.
But we don't think of, what if I just have 4 and I'm working on the 6?
That's true.
And I can show the progression for the 6.
Yeah.
And I think, yeah, that's the one thing that we really sell ourselves very short in that sense. I also think we are under the assumption that we have to compete.
Okay.
I don't necessarily think we have to compete. I think the competition field is quite even, but it's how we show up. You know, it makes us feel like, maybe I'm a bit outnumbered here, or I don't really have this there, or it's not at that level. So I think it's competition within ourselves that we feel we need to show up with more, but we don't necessarily. I actually think there's more opportunities for women, and I think we are at an advantage. But because we really play within the humility landscape, we really don't want to show up as hungry enough for this. And I think maybe that also is something that we do to eliminate ourselves. That we don't show up as very determined or hungry enough for it. You know, I think we sometimes show up as nonchalant about certain things because we don't want to look a certain way in perception. And I think we also worry about what a lot of people say. Like, we worry about perception, we worry about status quo, you know, we worry about so much about the us when we are actually capable, and we really shouldn't. I'm not saying that we should be closed off to the noise, but it shouldn't really deter us from achieving or being at the table,
Yeah, so we should navigate, what do they say, like navigate with the confidence of a white man. Apply
What does that
What does that mean?
If you're a 0, you can apply it even if it needs a 100.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Guys, you guys don't know this.
I know.
That's what they say on socials. Okay, so looking back at your career and, you know, all the things that you've gone through, what do you wish you could have done differently?
I think I wish I would have believed in myself more earlier. I think that I wish that I looked at barriers to entry as challenges and not necessarily as barriers. I think I would have wanted to challenge more as opposed to wait for certain things to be challenged by others. And simply because not feeling adequate enough to be able to be the challenger, and so wanting to be the observer and see how things play out. I think I would have wanted to be more of a challenger. But I also think I really wanted to believe in myself more. Yeah. I think I would have believed in myself more.
I think, listening to the whole conversation, I feel like there's a lot of like self-work that you need to do to get to like certain points, especially leadership, confidence, you know, working yourself, and not necessarily saying, because sometimes leaders, someone will have like years of experience, and then immediately people think, oh, well, you fit now to be leader because you've worked with a certain thing, or you know this thing for so long. But then it shows when it comes to leadership, because now it bleeds onto their subordinates, because it's just like, how did you not see that maybe this person was not okay? Or how do you not see that I'm not okay? I think there's a lot of, it's not just years of experience and the fact that you know a certain skill. There's so many personal elements that you need to have to actually say, for us to call you a proper leader. Just right now, people are passing titles, but anyways.
So going into, we probably have someone out there, right? Maybe they haven't even stepped into corporate, or they are at junior level, right? So what advice would you give them? And I think you spoke a lot about knowing self. Maybe share a little bit more what that means, like the knowing of self, the work that you do. Maybe also delve in more of what exactly is the self-work that I need to do. I mean, I know I am Tobeka, I know I am at whatever age, you know. So what do you mean, you know? So just for someone junior or stepping into corporate and thinking, I still want to get there, you know?
Yeah, so I think it's a lot around you are Duduzile and Timkul. What makes you tick?
Okay.
Why do you want this role? What does it mean for you?
Okay.
What skill set do you have? What's the X factor about you? What is the differentiator when I compare you to others? And that's the work of self. Do I show up confident? Am I afraid to speak out? Can I ask a question? Do I feel like if I ask a question, it's a stupid question? Am I okay to receive feedback? How do I deal with negative feedback? And how quickly do I want this? Do I really want to put in the time, know it, be the expert, then move over to my next? Or do I just want a summary of what this is and hope that will get me to the next? And I think that's the work that we need to do. Do I want to achieve a car because Dudu has a car? Or do I really want to be financially in a position where I can afford a car? And that's the work on self. You know, what is my path? Am I comfortable in my own lane? Or am I, diving between this lane and that lane? And if I am, what is making me do that? And is that how I'm going to show up in my career as well? Because we do have people that come in today, like, I don't like this, move over to the next. It's not a bad thing, because it's knowing that this is not working out for them. But how sustainable is that? And for how long can you do it? And what does that say about your brand? What do you want people to know about you? What do you want people to talk about? Like, what do you want people to say when you're not at the table?
Very true. And speaking of personal brand, especially,
Yeah.
I think a lot of us underestimate the fact that the perception about you is something that's very important.
Yeah.
Because we sometimes say, I don't care what people say, but you should care, probably, especially in corporate, from what I hear you saying. Right?
No, you should. You should, because is that going to be a hindrance to your growth? Are you going to be known as a complainer? And do people want to work with someone who complains? Or do people really want someone who is a strategic driver? Someone who will get in and say, okay, I'm not really sure what we're doing, but we're doing it. Who's taking lead? Let me understand what I need to do and how can I make this valuable? And that's the kind of branding that you want. You want people to say, oh, opportunity to work with Tobega, finally. And what can I get from Tobega right now? But it's also that of when I work with Dudu, how does she make me feel? Do I leave feeling like a better person, or do I leave feeling scarred? And that's the kind of branding that we need to think about when we work with people and engage with them. So and that's all on self. And those are the conversations you must have with yourself. That pep talk.
It's beautiful. So is there like a particular mantra or a quote that gets you through every day? Maybe if you're feeling stressed in corporate and, it's just feeling like, I want to quit this job. That makes
Not
you...
quit the job.
Not quit the job, but like, okay. But like, like a particular mantra that maybe keeps you on going.
Yeah, I can do this.
Okay.
And I will do this. Yeah, I can and I will.
Okay.
And I think the latest I was sharing with a friend of mine. So we were just singing and we were like, all we do is win, win, win.
No matter what.
So yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. Those two. Yeah.
It's really inspiring.
Yeah.
And we could talk forever. We could talk forever because it's an important conversation to have, and because many people are trying to get up there, but they just don't know how. So, and I think for me, I speak for myself. I believe we've laid it all on the table, and I think someone will get from out there, will get something from this and be able to navigate this corporate jungle.
Yeah, I think that like what key takeaway for me is working on yourself, because it means a lot. You know, the confidence, knowing how to speak, conversations that you have with yourself. So I think those are quite important key takeaways for me. So yeah.
Thank you so much for spending time with us and just being able to put it all on the table, like you left nothing out.
Yeah.
You really dived deep into everything and you gave us good nuggets to go by. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
Again, happy Women's Month. Thank you so much for tuning in. Do not forget to like, subscribe, share, comment, and tell us maybe what corporate barriers are you facing. And don't look at them as barriers, but rather challenges that you can be able to overcome. And I feel like this was a really interesting conversation. So if you're in a junior position, senior position, and you're really trying to make your way up the corporate ladder, it is possible, Black child. So
thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you once again for
Thank you
coming
for
through.
having me.
From your favorite tech sisters, it's goodbye.
we are out. Skatush. Bye.